Thank you, Uma, for making me part of this nice session. I think you pretty much covered everything, and I don't have anything to speak about. So my topic is supposed to be recurrent corneal erosions, the management protocols. So I think the management protocols for managing the epithelial discontinuity on the ocular surface is almost they overlap in almost most of the conditions which the other speakers are also going to be speaking about. So I'll just quickly give you an overview in the next 10 minutes or lesser on how recurrent corneal erosions perhaps differs in our corneal practices here. It was described way back in 1872 by Hansen, but then got characterized pretty, I mean, quite an almost half a century later by Chandler here. And as we all know, it is a spontaneous breakdown of the corneal epithelium, and the patient usually tends to present with an acute onset of pain. There's a blurred vision and tearing and photophobia, and if it's a casual evaluation, many ophthalmologists will perhaps tend to even miss it and wonder why it happens. And it usually you would have this acute episode occurring upon waking up here. And some of these patients, or maybe a vast majority of them, have a tendency to have this kind of an experience happening time and again here, and usually tends to be seen between the third and fourth decade of life with the male preponderance which is reported in literature here. So you might have either primary causes or you might have secondary causes which cause recurrent corneal erosions here. And pretty much what we see in our practice as a primary recurrent erosions is associated with anterior corneal dystrophy. So now I think we have moved away with named dystrophies to largely looking at them depending on the genotype which is mapping them. So the genotype phenotypic correlations, we've now moved away to look at them as anterior corneal dystrophies and anterior corneal and posterior corneal dystrophies. So most of the anterior corneal dystrophies and what we routinely talk about as epithelial basement membrane dystrophies are the ones in which you will probably see a large as early aspects of these, but you will find recurrent corneal erosions here. What are the secondary causes here? So this usually tends to occur after trivial fingernail trauma here. So the trauma sort of upsets the basement membrane, epithelium basement membrane complex adhesions, which happens here. And I think Omar has already vividly explained the pathogenesis or the pathophysiology which occurs under these. We do not see most of the recurrent erosions with other degenerations or eyelid pathologies because they have more mechanical causes related to it, and hence they might have minor disruptions of the epithelium here. So what you need to understand is the disruption lies at the level of the hemidesmosomes here. So that's when the basement membrane epithelial adhesion, the basal cell adhesion complex is sort of disturbed. Its internal milieu is disturbed. So we wouldn't go much into the pathology or pathogenesis of these here. Again, it's important to understand that can be two morphological forms. You could have a micro form or a macro form of recurrent corneal epithelial erosions here. So macro forms, most of us will not miss, and you know it would be a large a confluent breakdown of the epithelium, and you would find it on staining, and the patient would be vividly symptomatic in these patients. The micro forms are the fleeting forms here because they have miniature epithelial breakdowns, and by the time the patient tends, he'll go to the ophthalmologist the next day, it's almost healed, and then you tend to think that this patient is probably just being a psychosomatic complaint here. So that's when these are the patients who could probably take them for confocal microscopy imaging of the anterior cornea, the epithelium, subepithelial layers, and you can look for these abnormalities which are probably contributing here. So that's when you pick it up earlier, and it's important in patients when you're going to be screening for refractive laser corrections here. So these are patients where you're going to have postoperative healing problems in the event you're planning a surface ablation for these patients. So that is the importance of how you will look at recurrent corneal erosions in young populations who are presenting for refractive surgery. So hence the importance in learning to understand these, because by the time if it's a microform of an REC and the patient is presenting to you, it will probably not be able to pick it up. It heals very well. Again, it's the basic dictum. Anything which causes a complete disruption of the Bowman's membrane is going to cause a scarring. In the microform, it's not a complete disruption of the basement membrane, it's only a partial or only the anterior superficial layer, and it heals pretty much well without any scarring or a very a superfluous or not a very stringent evaluation might miss up the subtle scarring here. That's the reason I think most of us do not have good pictures of recurrent corneal erosions. Same with me. I do not have good pictures, so I had to look into the net to pull up some for any of those who would probably be referring to this. And this is pretty much it's available. You have more of such pictures available on the net here, and you would probably on careful evaluation on slit lamp see a very small spot. This is a much magnified image here. You would find a very small spot of a very mild anterior scarring here, and if it's usually off the visual axis, you might not cause any visual blurring in these patients. When you see patients like this, you know what it is here. So you know this is an anterior corneal dystrophy, this is an epithelial basement, or what we call as fingerprint map DOP here. And this at this stage, you know, you would pretty much pick it up here because you have the presentations of the dystrophy there, and these patients will present with a lot of recurrent corneal erosions here, and they would be symptomatic time and again here. And again, for most of us who have been in corneal practice for long and who have been doing full thickness transplants for these patients, you would know that these are the lattice dystrophies, the Avellino dystrophies, and to a much lesser extent the gelatinous droplet dystrophies, where you would have recurrent corneal erosions in the macro form, complicating the anterior stromal opacifications here, can lead to secondary infections here, and that is something which we need to watch up. And this might, in several cases, almost alter the primary picture of the dystrophy, that you might miss it out that it is a dystrophy. We have several cases with bilateral presentations of varying intensity of opacifications, and the histopath then picks up and shows that it's an Avellino or it is a lattice here. So that's something which you need to keep in the back of your mind here. The principles are pretty much same as what Dr. Uma elucidated to earlier here. It's copious lubricant therapy when you're seeing it in the symptomatic stage here, and if you are also seeing them in when they are not symptomatic or not able to find out anything, you would still like to keep them on topical lubricant therapy here. And if they are non-healing, you would look at supplementing with growth factors, with medications as topical biologics such as autologous serum of varying percentages. 10 or 20% is what we would commonly use. Supportive therapies is usually not required in the microforms of these patients here. But when you have an associated inflammation here, when you find the MMP levels are going to be higher, then you will probably supplement oral doxycycline for these patients here, and potentiate with surface steroids for these patients here. So that's how it goes. The role of nerve growth factor recombinant NGF in REC is not much understood, so I'm not aware, it's not available, so I have an experience in the use of that. Macroforms and patients who come with frequent recurrent breakdowns, in those are the ones you're probably going to have them on long-term lubricants and mild surface steroids, and would probably also consider therapeutic contact lens usage for these patients. I do not do punctal occlusions for these patients here. Also described in literature is anterior stromal punctures for patients who are, not having much of useful vision here. They are symptomatic recurrently, and then you probably have considered you're going to take them for a full thickness keratoplasty, because anterior stromal punctures is going to induce scarring, and you would not want that if you need to take them for a lamellar procedure here. So that's something which you would look at. Debridement is not something which I've used in the management of RECs, but for recurrent, people do recommend PTKs here, but then be sure you're probably doing it for the traumatic etiology and not for the etiologies of anterior corneal dystrophies here, and otherwise you'll need to be prepared for the healing of these, please. I think I will stop here, and I thank Shivani for helping me with the various inputs in this presentation. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Vanati? I would request Dr. Paras to get ready with her slides. Yeah, sure.
You can come on to that portal.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you that what would be your take on like alcohol delamination for such cases?
I skipped that because of See, one is when you know this is a patient with RECs with an epithelial basement membrane dystrophy, then I'm going to be wary on doing a refractive laser procedure for these patients. And once you do a refractive laser procedure, then you know that there's going to be a persistent especially if you've done a photoablation for these patients. So alcohol delamination is only going to help you with an early epithelial loosening here. How much of this is going to potentiate the healing? I will now leave it with the more looking at how the nerve factor healing is going to happen in this. So I have not personally done any for these patients, so I cannot share my personal experience because I would always be more cautious when I am adopting a refractive procedure on an eye with a 6665, and I know there are going to be complications. I usually refrain and I would move on to the conservative side of management. Would like the views of the other members and experts on this. Yeah.
Dr. Murli, any inputs?
With the diamond polisher. So I think the results are pretty good. I have little over 20 cases, including Engel's case, around 8-year-old child, obscure etiology, bilateral. So there are no recurrences, thankfully. And Dua also has published,
Yes,
this series
yes.
has around 83% is a success rate.
Yeah, clinically, I have been using that for some of
I
the
think
patients
this
who have
works.
traumatic etiology,
This
especially.
works in the cases where madam showed consistently
Yes.
same location.
Yes.
If they're having a breakdown, so that's the basically root cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if we can go and polish the basement membrane.
So you sort of limit the treatment to only that region and you do not disturb the residual. And it, I think, works best more for a traumatic etiology, which means for secondary RECs tend to behave better. But for primary RECs, if it's because of an EBM, then I'm going to be cautious because it's really not going to help because it's not doing away with it's probably going to potentiate more harm in these patients. Yeah.
And one of the biggest advantage of alcohol epithelectomy, you don't induce hyperopia. Unlike conventionally when we do a PTK, as madam
Yeah.
was pointing, 6-6 vision, you end up giving a hyperopic refractive error, which is
Yes.
undesirable.
And how about anterior stromal punctures? And
If they are not in the visual axis,
Yes.
peripheral, they are very troublesome. Even after repeated alcohol epithelectomy, then I would go ahead and do a selective, ASP, if it is outside visual axis.
would you use a YAG laser or would you use a needle?
Okay, YAG laser tend to produce a lot of vessels. That's what I've actually observed. I think a needle, hypodermic needle is the best way to. We can do it on a slit lamp and put a contact lens. That works very well.
It's a simple in-office procedure and it's less expensive, if anything.